Hello everyone, today we will study chemical properties of S elements. First experiment. First experiment is a reaction of magnesium powders with water. I take a small amount of magnesium powders to the tube. Then I add some distilled water. And a few drops of phenolphthalein. This is phenolphthalein. As you can see, no reactions here because magnesium particularly don't react with cold water. But if I heat it, don't forget to use tube holders. Magnesium reacts with hot water. And forms magnesium hydroxide that purely soluble in water. But it's a strong base. And phenolphthalein indicates the presence of hydroxide ions. And you can see the change of color from colorless to pink. If I will add hydrochloric acid, color disappeared, and you can see intensive reaction magnesium with hydrochloric acid, but no color already, because hydrochloric acid neutralized the magnesium hydroxide, and solution changes color. Our pink color disappeared. Next reaction experiment B. You should synthesize the magnesium hydroxide. We can obtain magnesium hydroxide by reaction of magnesium salt, for example, magnesium chloride, with some base, for example, sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide. And you can see the white precipitate. So already told you, magnesium hydroxide is insoluble in water. Then I will add some amount of water because we should divide this precipitate by 3 parts. Divided by 3 parts. So I should divide it. Should put it in first tube and second tube. To one tube I should add sodium hydroxide, excess amount. If I add more sodium hydroxide, I will not absorb any changes because sodium hydroxide is not amphoteric hydroxide, it's a base hydroxide. And magnesium hydroxide don't react with bases. So no reaction with sodium hydroxide. If I add hydrochloric acid in second tube, our precipitate disappeared because insoluble magnesium hydroxide reacts with hydrochloric acid and formed magnesium salt that's soluble in water. And the last reaction is a reaction of magnesium hydroxide with ammonia chloride. When I add ammonia chloride, precipitate also disappeared. Okay. Experiment C. We should check reactions of calcium, strontium, barium salts with sodium hydroxide and ammonia hydroxide. At first, let's try calcium chloride. I will take 2 tubes. To 1 tube, I will add sodium hydroxide. To second tube, ammonia hydroxide. So it's sodium hydroxide. Milky white color precipitate. Because calcium hydroxide is also insoluble in water. And ammonia hydroxide. Also, we can see that our solution is not clear. Let's try to do these reactions with strontium salt. Reaction with sodium hydroxide. Give us some milky white solution, because strontium hydroxide is also poorly soluble in water, and with ammonia hydroxide also milky white. And let's try to do it with barium salt. With sodium hydroxide, we also have milky white solutions, but barium hydroxide is soluble in water. But because sodium hydroxide contains the traces of sodium carbonate, we have this milky white precipitate also. But only small amount, because barium hydroxide is soluble. And the same, I think, will be with ammonia. Yes, also some white precipitate, also because of traces of carbonates. But if you take, if you will take the pure solutions of sodium hydroxide and ammonia hydroxide, maybe more fresher, I think there will be no any precipitation. Okay. Next reaction, the reaction between strontium, calcium strontium barium salt with sulfuric acid. First calcium salt. In this beaker is sulfuric acid. We prepared it before experiment. And no reaction. Because calcium sulfate is solubility of calcium sulfate is medium. So if you take the concentration solutions of calcium salts and medium concentrated sulfuric acid, you can obtain calcium sulfate. But in diluted solution, no precipitation will form. Strontium salt. Strontium sulfate is insoluble in water, so it's easy to obtain white precipitate. And let's try barium salt. Barium sulfate is also insoluble. Okay, let's do the last experiment. It's also reactions between calcium, strontium, and barium salts, but in this time it will be reaction with potassium chromate. Calcium salt. It's potassium chromate. And no precipitation. Strontium salt. And you can see yellow precipitate. And barium salt. Also precipitate. Let's try to study the effect of acetic acid to these precipitates. This one is strontium chromate, this is barium chromate. Let's add acetic acid. Acetic acid. So if I add acetic acid to the tube with strontium salt, our precipitate dissolves and color change to orange. The color change to orange because in acidic environment, chromate become bichromate that has orange color. And if I add acetic acid to the tube with barium salt, it's no effect. It's the difference between the reaction of strontium and barium salts with chromate, potassium chromate. So, if you have any questions, please ask me.